Welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you decided to tune in for part 2 of the Lord's calendar versus man's calendar. So if you're ready, great. To be ready, all you need is a Bible. So if you don't have it and you would like to follow along, pause the video, go ahead and go get it. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and cover my head because of what 1 Corinthians says. And I don't have a husband, so I don't want to dishonor God in case I decide to prophesy or pray. But in just reading his Bible, I like to cover my head. And in another video, I'll show you why. It's more, well, I'm not going to get into that. Okay, so we're going to get straight into the good stuff, okay? In the last video, all we really did was point out some things for beginners, how to search the Bible, to make sure we're not coming up with our own interpretation, but we are understanding what the Lord is telling us. And to do that, we search line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're also going to throw in some history. So since we're getting started, the first thing we want to do is look at our foundation. If the foundation is shaky, a little bit of rain, a little bit of wind, your house is damaged, is destroyed. You build it on sand, it's nothing. But if you build your house on a rock, if you build your knowledge on the foundation that it should be built on, which is this right here, Holy Bible. I use the King James Version. There's a video explaining why. I'll reshare that so that it's in the new videos because, yeah. So, I understand if you think the words are hard to understand, trust me. The more you read it, the easier it is to understand. And I believe in you, so I think you can do it. But take a look at that video. You might want to stop reading the other versions. Anywho, we also found out that in that first video that the very first thing God created for us was time. See, God is not bound by time. Time does not affect him. So he doesn't need time. He created it for us. And we have to understand how to read it. Our foundation says the beginning of each day is at midnight, at 12:00 a.m. There are 7 days in a week. There are 4 to 5 weeks in a month. There are 12 months in a year, beginning in the winter, January to December. So first, we're going to break apart that foundation so that we can make sure our foundation is that solid rock. So I'm going to show this short video that I created some years ago. And if it's going too fast, pause it, rewind it, or just keep following along. We'll go over all of that stuff. So here you go. There were 2 calendars in use when the Messiah walked the earth: the Julian calendar and the lunisolar calendar. The lunisolar calendar was given to us on the 4th day of creation. Each month begins with the new moon, followed by 4 weeks. Each week has 6 working days, with the 6th day being the preparation day for the 7th day, which is the Sabbath. Each month is structured the same. Typically 12 months make up a year. And then we were given simple instructions to find the feast days within that year. Pretty simple, right? Now let's get into this Julian calendar. The Julian calendar was established in 45 BC. It replaced what is known as the Roman Republic calendar that was established in 738 BC. It had to be replaced because it only consisted of 10 months, leaving 61 whole days of the winter unaccounted for. To make up for their mistake, they added another god to their roster and a month of cleansing. But instead of adding those 2 months to the end of the year, they moved them to the beginning of the year. In doing so, winter became the beginning of the year instead of the spring, and months like September, October, November, and December lost their numerical value. In 32 AD, a religious cult group in Rome called Mithraism
came along and changed the 8-day week into a 7-day week. Instead of using the alphabet to identify weekdays, they used Roman gods. In the bathhouse of Titus, which was in use between 79 and 81 AD, this stick calendar was found. We can see the order of their weeks based on their gods. Saturn holding a sickle because he was the god of harvest. Sol with the sun rays over the head. Luna, the moon god with the crescent moon. Chus, which is the god of Mars with the war helmet. Mercury or Woodens with the winged helmet. And Caduceus, I don't think I said that right. Then we have Thor, the god of Jupiter, holding their thunderbolts. And finally, Venus, or Friggs, the god of love. Around the year 321, the first day of the week was changed officially from Saturday to Sunday so that the sun worshippers could have the first day of the week. By 1562, the years had fallen completely off track from the seasons, so Pope Gregory was called to fix the problem. It took 20 years to find a solution, which included removing 10 days from the calendar. Great Britain followed suit in 1572, and that's when the Gregorian calendar went global. For some reason, people believe that the 7-day cycle has never been interrupted, even with all these man-made changes and mistakes and quick fixes. But history proves otherwise. Take a look at this.
Inscriptions carved by Christians onto sepulchres provide additional archaeological evidence that the earliest Christians had knowledge of both the Julian calendar and the biblical calendar, and the difference in the two calendars' weekly cycles. One of the earliest, found in Rome, dates from 269 CE. It says, "In the consulship of Claudius and Paternus, on the nones of November, on the day of Venus, and on the 24th day of the lunar month, Luces placed this memorial to her very dear daughter Severa, and to thy Holy Spirit. She died at the age of 55 years, and 11 months, and 10 days. Notice it gives two different dates. The nones of November refers to November 5th. That year, this fell on the day of Venus, or Friday. In that particular lunation, this corresponded to the 24th day of the lunar month, which would have been second day on the biblical week. This is significant because if second day in that lunation fell on Friday, the seventh day and the Sabbath coincided with the pagan Wednesday, or day of Mercury. Many people claim that Saturday is the biblical Sabbath simply because that is when the Jews worship. However, Jewish scholars are well aware that Saturday is not the original Sabbath of Scripture and admit this in their publications. The new moon is still, and the Sabbath originally was, dependent upon the lunar cycle. Originally, the new moon was celebrated in the same way as the Sabbath. With the development of the importance of the Sabbath as a day of consecration and the emphasis laid upon the significant number 7, the week became more and more divorced from its lunar connection. The months of the year were lunar, and began with the new moon. Ultimately, the Jews set aside the ancient calendar of creation due to the extreme persecution that fell on anyone clinging to the biblical calendar following the Council of Nicaea. Under the reign of Constantius, 337 to 362, the persecutions of the Jews reached such a height that the computation of the calendar was forbidden under pain of severe punishment. Declaring the new month by observation of the new moon and the new year by the arrival of spring can only be done by the Sanhedrin. In the time of Hillel II, the last president of the Sanhedrin, the Romans prohibited this practice. Hillel II was therefore forced to institute his fixed calendar. The Council of Nicaea was the turning point. As the chronologist David Sidersky explained, it was no more possible under Constance to apply the old calendar. As a result of this intense persecution, Hillel II, the last president of the Sanhedrin, modified the ancient Hebrew calendar. No longer would the weekly cycle be based on observation of the moon. The Jews afterward worshipped on Saturday, the 7th day of the newly standardized Julian week.
There were two calendars in use when the Messiah walked the earth. Pretty clear which one he was on, the one that never changed.
So as you can see, from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, there were a lot of changes. Just to recap, some of those changes were when the beginning of the month is, when the beginning of the week is. And days don't mean much to them, so removing 10 days means nothing. It didn't affect their calendar or their way of keeping time in any way. But if you follow God, it will throw off your month to remove 10 days. It will throw off your year. So let's take a look at some things. Why do I celebrate the beginning of the year in the spring instead of in the winter? This is why. And actually, before we go there, why is this knowledge not widespread? Why don't people know about this? In Colossians 1, so Colossians is found in the New Testament. Colossians 1 verse 26 says, even the mystery which hath been hid from ages and from generations, but now is made manifest to his saints. So pastors don't know about this because it was hidden. God hid it on purpose, not just from a few people, but from generations. And so since this is a mystery, that's what the word said, not what I said. Since this is a mystery, we have to find the clues to connect the dots to solve the mystery, right? So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go to Exodus 12. So Exodus 12:1 says, and to the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months, and it shall be the first month of the year to you. So the Lord has given us a clue. We have to find those clues, like Blue's Clues, right? Find the clues. Or like Scooby-Doo, right? It says, verse 3, speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. So this is a feast called the Passover. This is how people knew the calendars were off. In that video you saw where Julius created a calendar and needed Pope Gregory to fix it, is because they were beginning to fall out of season. This feast had to take place during its season. We can prove that, and we're going to come back here, so don't lose the page. Put a bookmark or something there. But we're going to run to Leviticus 23 really quick, just to substantiate the statement of this feast needing to be held in its season. So in Leviticus 23, and it's the very next book after Exodus, verse 4 and 5. We're just going to read verse 4 and 5. It says, these are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their season. Right? Did you catch that? So a holy convocation is what we would consider a church gathering. It's a gathering that everyone wants to come pure, clean, and holy because we're going before the Lord. So he said this is a feast, it's a holy convocation, and it must be held in its season. So what feast is this? Verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. So we just saw that the Lord's Passover had to be held in its season. So with Julius being over Israelites who are keeping the feast, because these feasts had to be held every year, they had to, it was known that, okay, we are falling out of season. So that's why Gregory created the calendar. Now, the Roman Catholic Church is a spinoff, or I'll say the Roman Empire with a mask. Just, hidden from plain sight. I mean, those who know, know. If you know, you know. But those who don't know, they think the Roman Catholic Church is just a church. But all churches fall under the Pope. The Baptist Church, the Protestant Church, the Mormons, that's why the Pope has the big thing where everyone has to kiss the ring. Everyone has to come and bow down, because he's actually in control, calling all the shots. And that answer, that came straight from a pastor that I used to be under. He was the leader of a group of pastors, and he said that group had a leader, and that leader was in a group which had a leader from that group, and it went all the way up. It went all the way up. And that's where they get their orders from. So that's another story though. Let's stick with this calendar. So as you can see, the month sometimes has 5 weeks according to man. So you can have 28 days, 29 days, 30 days, even 31 days. So in man's calendar, I cannot give you instruction and you go create a calendar. You have to depend on man. So let's take a look at Jeremiah 17, verse 5. Jeremiah 17. It says, "Thus saith the Lord, Cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh his flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Lord." Why is that important? You have to trust a man in order to tell you what day it is. I want you to think about that. Can you go create a calendar? Can you explain why are there 31 days in July but not June? You can't. You have to depend on a man. So the Bible says if you trust a man and make his flesh your arm and make his word your strength, then you are cursed. Okay? And what does that do? It causes you to depart from the Lord. How? With this calendar, you're not on God's timing. You're on man's timing. Now, I'm going to explain to you how to count God's timing to where you can create your own calendar, and God is the foundation of it. So the first thing we're going to look at, we're going to go to 1 Samuel chapter 20. And we're going to read this story, but we're going to skip around a little bit. Okay? So we're just going to come and pull out the important things. What is that? Everything. Every word that man cannot live on bread alone, but every word that proceeded out of God's mouth. So every word in this Bible is important. We cannot cherry pick and say, oh, this is only important sometimes. So we're going to create a calendar. So we're going to find the clues needed to do so. 1 Samuel 20. We're going to start at verse 3. No, we're not. I'm just going to tell you. So verses 1 through 4, you can go back and read it. It's explaining that David is running from Saul. Jonathan is Saul's son. Jonathan is David's best friend. So we see a conflict of interest here. So David is telling Jonathan, your dad wants to kill me. I'm next to be king. He wants to kill me. Jonathan is like, no, he doesn't. You're crazy. We're going to set him up and find out if this is true. So we're going to pick it up at verse 5. It says, "And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon." We'll get into what the new moon is in just a moment. Tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field until the third day at even. If thy father at all miss me, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me, that he might run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he says thus, it is well, thy servant shall have peace. But if he be very wroth, then he be sure that evil is determined of him. So, what is that saying? David said, all right, look, now these are clues. Remember, there's mystery that we have to solve. So, David said, we know tomorrow is the new moon. So, they knew tomorrow was new moon. Okay? That's one thing. He said, I should not fail to sit at meat. What does that mean? I cannot miss this dinner. What is this dinner? It's new moon. Okay? So that is letting us know that this is something important. What else did he say? He said, so let me go. I'm going to hide myself. And I'm going to come back around the third day. What is that letting us know? Something that I'm going to explain a little bit later, which is the new moon period can last 1 to 2 days. Right? So he said, now if your father is asking about me, just tell him I had to handle some business back at home with my family. And if he says, okay, that's fine, then I know that everything is peaceful. But if he's mad, it's because he wants to kill me. Okay? So what are the most important thing that we want to pull out from here in order to create our calendar is new moon is tomorrow. Now we'll keep reading to figure out why. And just to make this video interesting, I'll continue with the story. It says, and I'm going to read it a little fast. So if I'm going too fast, pause it. Or, yeah, just pause it. And then you can read it, at your pace. And then, yeah, okay. So it says, if he says, okay, I read that part. So verse 8, therefore, thou shalt deal kindly with thy servant, for thou hast brought thy servant into a covenant of the Lord with thee. Notwithstanding, if there be in me iniquity, slay me thyself. For why shouldest thou bring me to thy father? He said, and hopefully I'm good with you, because we're best friends before the Lord. You know what it is. But if it's anything in me, if it's any evil, wickedness, if I got an ulterior motive, kill me yourself. What's the point in taking me to your father? You can handle it, right? So he said, and Jonathan said, far be it from thee. For if I knew certainly that evil were determined by my father to come upon thee, then would I not tell it thee? He said, bro, miss me with all that. You my best friend. If my dad was trying to kill you, don't you know I would tell you? Then David said to Jonathan, who shall tell me? And what if thy father answer thee roughly? He said, why would you tell me? Because what if your father get mad at you? Right? Because that's a conflict of interest. And Jonathan said unto David, come and let us go out into the field. And they went both of them into the field. And Jonathan said unto David, O Lord God of Israel, when I have sounded my father about tomorrow any time, or the third day, and behold, if there be good toward David, and if I then sin not unto thee, and show it thee, the Lord do such and much more to Jonathan. But if it please my father to do thee evil, then I will show it thee, and send thee away, that thou mayest go in peace, and the Lord be with thee, and he hath been with, as he has been with my father. So Jonathan said, look, God, this is not right. Right? He said, so I'm going to do this thing. And whether it be the first day or the third day, if my dad show any sign of trying to kill David, then I'm going to have to speak on it. I'm going to have to say something about it. Because there's no reason for Saul to be trying to kill him. So he said, if I'm wrong, then Lord, do what you need to do to me, right? Okay, so it says, and thou shalt not only while yet I live show me kindness of the Lord, that I die not, but also shalt not cut off thy kindness from my house forever. No, not when the Lord hath cut off the enemies of David, every one from the face of earth. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, let the Lord require it at the hand of David's enemies. So Jonathan said, you know what? I'm not just going to make this agreement with you and me, but I'm going to do this, and it's going to be peace between our families forever. Right? Just cutting it short. And let's see. And Jonathan caused David to swear again because he loved him. For he loved him as he loved his own soul. So Jonathan promised me this. I swear, we making a covenant right now. Your word got to be bond, right? And Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seed will be empty. So again, tomorrow is the new moon. Let's pay attention here. And when thou hast stayed 3 days, then thou shalt go down quickly and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself when the business was in hand, and shall remain by the stone Ezel. And I will shoot 3 arrows on the side thereof, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send a lad, saying, go find out the arrows. If I expressly say unto the lad, behold, the arrows are on this side of thee, take them. Then come thou, for there is peace to thee, and no hurt, as the Lord liveth. So he said, all right, this is the plan. You gonna go hide, get gone, come back. On the 3rd day, I'ma come. I'ma shoot some arrows. If I tell the young boy that need to go get the arrows that the arrows are too far for him to get, then you get them, and you can come back. But if I shoot the arrows let's read it. It says, but if I say unto the young man, behold, the arrows are beyond thee, go thy way, for the Lord has sent thee away. He said, but if I tell the young boy, arrows are just way too far, then that's your sign to go, to keep going, keep where you're going, don't come back here, right? So let's see what happens and why we came here. It says, and as touching the matter which thou and I have spoken, behold, the Lord be between thee and me forever. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon the seat as at other times, even upon the seat by the wall, and Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. So the new moon came. They are respecting, honoring, feasting on the new moon. And David's seat is empty. Okay. It says, nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the 2nd day of the month. That's what we came here for. So what clues do we have in reading portion of this story? That the new moon is the 1st day of the month, and the next day is the 2nd day of the month. Okay, so we're going to create our calendar like this. We have the new moon being the 1st day of the month. I really don't want to leave you guys hanging, but there's not much left to read here. And you were instructed to study for yourself. Plus, reading this word, the more you read it, the more it gets into you, and the more it helps you, it changes you. So go ahead after this video, or right now, pause it if you want, and finish reading this chapter. You're going to find out what happened. What did Saul do? How did Jonathan respond? Did he shoot those arrows and tell the young man to go get them? Or did he tell the young man, they're too far, they're way past you? Right? What did David do? Because right now we're making a calendar, so we're going to go to Ezekiel 46. So we're going to Ezekiel chapter 46. This is instruction for us. Verse 1 says, "Thus saith the Lord." So not Gregory or Julius or your preacher, your teacher, your pastor, your minister, your reverend. No, the Lord. Not Moses, not David, Jonathan, Saul, Abraham, none of them. The Lord said this. So this is what we're setting our foundation to, right? "The gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days. But the Sabbath it shall be opened, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened." These are the days that everyone is supposed to go to the church. How do we know that? Let's take another look at another story. Remember, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, line by line. That's what we're doing. And that was a little out of order, but y'all know what I mean. So we are going to go to 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1. "Now there cried a certain woman from the wives of the sons of the prophets of Elias, saying, Thy servant, my husband, is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen." So this woman owes somebody. Well, her husband owes somebody. And since the husband is dead, the man that they owed the debt to was coming to take the kids to work for him, to be bondmen, slaves, workers, servants, right? It says, "And Elias said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, Thine handmaid hath not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. Then he said, Go, borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels. Borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door unto thee and upon thy sons, and shall pour out into all these vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full." And she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There is not a vessel more, and the oil is stayed. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, Go, sell the oil and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of rest. And it fell on a day that Elias passed Shushan, where was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold, now I perceive that this is an holy man, which passes by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, and a wall, and let us set up for him a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither. So, the man of God is on a mission to help one woman, and another woman stops him. Hey, stop and eat. Come and get you some food, right? So every time he passed through that city, he broke bread with her, ate a meal, right? So she told her husband, I know this is a man of God. We should set something up for him so that when he passed by, he can rest comfortably, right? It says, And it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, Call the Shushemite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. So he passed by again, saw the little place she made for him. He chilled, and then told his servant, Hey, go call that lady that did this. So he went and did that. He went and called her. He went and got her, I should say. And he said unto him, Say now unto her, Behold, Thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldst thou be spoken for to the king, or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among my own people. So he said, when she got there, he said, I see you did all of this for me. I appreciate that. What can I do for you? You want me to take a message to the king? You need to go? What do you want? And she said, nothing. I'm good here with my people. Right? 14. And he said, what then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, verily, she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. So she left, and the man of God is like, man, how can I help her? Like, I want to help her. So the servant said, well, she's childless. She can't have a child because her husband is too old. So he said, go get her again. So he went and got her. She came back. Now she's standing there. It says, and he said, about this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, nay, my Lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thine handmaid. So she said, you funny, don't play with me. I already know it's not gonna happen. Now see, this makes me wonder, did this old man just pick a young wife and he couldn't even give her a seed? But that's another story. But she like, yeah, right, don't lie to me, right? And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elias had said unto her, according to the time of life. So the time of life is 10 months. It takes 10 months, 40 weeks I know the world says 9 months, but 40 weeks, do the math. That's 10 months. It takes 10 months to grow a seed. And just like the man of God said, at that time, she had that baby. It says, and when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said unto his father, my head, my head. And he said to a lad, carry him to his mother. So the child wasn't grown like a grown-up, but the child had grown a little bit. He's not a baby, right? He's old enough to walk and talk and say, my head hurts. So that's what he did. He went to his father like, my head is really hurting, and he said, take him to his mom. Take him to his mom so she can take care of him. So it says, and when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon. Then he died. So they took the little boy to his mama, and he just laid his head. He just rested on her, and then he died. Right? It says, and she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door upon him and went out. So she went and made, she put the boy, in the chamber that she made for the man of God. Right? It says, and she called unto her husband and said, send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God and come again. So she went to her husband like, my baby dead. Please, let me go to Elias. Please, give me some men. Give me some cattle. I need an ass to ride on. It's a journey I gotta take. Please send me though. I need to go. Right? It says, and this is the clue for the mystery. It says, and he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, it shall be well. Why is that a clue? Because these people live so far that she needs an ass to get to the place where the man of God is, to get to the synagogue, to get to the temple, to get to the church, to get to whatever you want to call it. But what did he say to her? Why do you want to go today? It's not the new moon, it's not the Sabbath. We don't go any other days. We go on the new moon and the Sabbath. So why do you want to go today? So that verse we just read in Ezekiel, the gates will be open on the new moon and the gates will be open on the Sabbath. We just got a little there and we got a little here. So she has a reason to go. I want to go because, should I tell you or should you read the rest of the story yourself? I think you will be surprised. I think you should read the rest of the story yourself. So you only need to read not even the whole chapter. I stopped at verse 24, and you only need to read until verse 35 to find out what happens with this woman and this child and this husband and this man of God. But what did we come here for? We came here to find a precept to make sure we got the correct understanding. Yes, the gates are open means that's when the people come in. Now, why do they come in? Let's see. I want to point out something here. So, the new moon is important. And we're going to go through this kind of fast. So you might want to pause if I'm going too fast. First, we're going to go to Psalms 81:3. It says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed, and on our solemn feast day. So we see the new moon is connected with a feast day in this verse. Let's go to Colossians 2:16. Colossians 2:16. And it says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days. So here we see the new moon is connected to the holy days. It's also connected to the Sabbath days. It's, well, I won't say connected, but it's used together. The new moon is clumped in with these days, right? Let's take a look at Isaiah 66. Isaiah 66 verse 23. It says, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. So again, the new moon is put into that same category with the Sabbath. Now, you can search this Bible, but you will never find a verse that connects the new moon with a working day. The new moon is mentioned with the Sabbath. The new moon is mentioned with the holy days. The new moon is a special day. Right? Let's see. Let's go to Isaiah 1:13. It says, bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies. I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meetings. So no matter what is being talked about, now I went to places that are talking about different things. One place in Isaiah 66, it was talking about when the Lord returns at the end of all of this. The new moons, from one new moon to another, from one Sabbath to another, everyone will come and worship me. Remember it said every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. So the new moon meant something in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, now and then. In this verse right here, it's saying, I don't like your church gatherings. I'm going to read it again so that you understand. I don't like your holy meetings, your new moons, and your Sabbaths. Oh, you could kick that to the curb. The focus is, again, the new moon and the Sabbath is mentioned together. They're similar. And I'm going to show you why they're similar. But this says, and I'm going to read it again. It says, I'm going to read some more of this, because this is the reason why it's important for us to get on God's calendar. And then we'll get back to God's calendar. Actually, I'll show you how and when a day begins and ends in this video. Maybe. We'll see. Okay, so we're going to start at verse 10. It says, hear the word of the Lord, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of our God, ye people of Gomorrah. Now, right here, is he talking to Sodom and Gomorrah? No. He is talking he's talking to everyone. Sodom and Gomorrah, we know what they're known for. They're known for their wickedness. Lot brought him out. There were a very small number of people that were following God's law there, and God destroyed it with brimstone and fire. This place here is going to be destroyed by fire. He said when he created the rainbow, I will never flood this again. I will never destroy the entire world with water. I'll do it with fire. Okay? So he's saying, you rulers, you people that are in charge, you presidents, you congressmen, you pastors. That's really who's in charge. It's really who he's talking to. You leaders. He said, to what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? Saith the Lord, I am full of burnt offerings of rams, and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. See, back in these days, if you sinned, blood was required. Really, your blood was required. You were supposed to die. But he said, you know what? I'll take the blood of an animal because all of you will be dead. But he said, what's the purpose of you sacrificing? Because all you're doing is, oops, I sinned today. I'm going to go get that sheep and sacrifice it as my sin offering so that I can be forgiven. And then next week, oops, I sinned again. Guess I'm just going to have to give up one of my goats. Sorry, sinned again. He said, what's the point of that? You're supposed to be repenting, changing, not continuing to sin. I'm full. I don't want no more ram. I don't want no chickens. I don't want no lambs. I don't want no goats. I don't want nothing. I don't want your sacrifices. Because obedience is better than sacrifice, right? He said, when ye shall come to appear before me, who hath required this at your hand to tread my courts? God is mad. He said, when you come before me, who made this a requirement? You walking all over my stuff with your dirty self, right? It says, Bring no more vain oblations. Don't bring me no more of that stuff. It's all in vain. You're not really sorry. You can't tell me you're sorry for slapping me and then turn around and slap me again for the same reason. For the same thing. You're doing the same thing. I don't want it. He said, incense is an abomination unto me. Don't burn no more incense for me. I'm tired of smelling it. Right? He said, the new moons and the Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I could care less about that. These new moons and Sabbaths that you're keeping, right? It says, it is iniquity. Even the solemn meetings, even your holy so-called gatherings. It says, your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hateth. They are trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. Did he say my new moon or my feast? When we read about the feast before, it said these are the feasts of the Lord. That's the difference here. We have my calendar and your calendar. We have my feast and your feast. To give you an example, we have Passover, the Lord's feast, and we have Easter, man's feast. We have the Feast of Tabernacles, God's feast, and we have Thanksgiving, man's feast. We have, I can continue. And then we have the Sabbath of the Lord, and we have the days that people call the Sabbath, or days that people say the Sabbath can be every day. No. God set a specific day to be the Sabbath. And he said, your days, I'm tired of them.